feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Monday morning. It's February 2nd, before the Wolves play their second of two games against the Grizzlies this evening. I got Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick here with me from the Pioneer Press. I want to discuss a few different things today, Jace. I sent them to you. I thought there were a few interesting. I don't think the game was very interesting, the first matchup with the Grizzlies, but some of the comments genuinely were, it was one of the better, I thought, like locker rooms and Finch pressers. So I got a couple things about that. Ant talked a little more about the energy and effort issues against lesser opponents. Finch gave some explanation on Conley and the sort of permanence of him in the rotation. Naz has been great. I asked Finch about Naz and just kind of leveling up, because I do feel like we're seeing a version of Naz that I haven't seen before. And then, yeah, not related to the game, we got to talk a little bit about Giannis. Nothing really seems to have moved on that front over the weekend. I talked a little bit about the feasibility of it. Last week, I went through just how complicated it would be for the Wolves to get to the amount of assets that it would take. I thought we would talk about Giannis a little bit more in the sense of the idea of the two superstars sort of thing, the two superstars and nothing roster construction style that has worked, has not worked. So yeah, I don't know. Of those things, I'll let you start, Chase. What do you want to start with? Naz, Giannis, Conley, or have the energy conversation for the 50th time?
Yeah, the energy one for the 50th time really excites me. No, happy to touch on that. But I mean, I think we should start with Giannis just because, things could happen whenever. So if something with Giannis happened at 4 p.m. today, it would be nice if we got it out of the way. If you listen to the pod and you're like, oh, I listened to the first 10 minutes before something actually happened with Giannis. So we'll knock that out. But as far as just feasibility, I know what you're saying. I listened to that part of it. And there are so many times, though, where after the KD thing last trade deadline, where it really looked unfeasible then, and yet if you talk to anybody like around the Wolves, they like swore they were really close. So I think
I still don't get that, but they said
I don't either. And they there was no reason to lie about it, frankly. So I think they just there's what I wrote this, like, where there's a will, there's a way. You can pull enough levers and include enough people or whatever. So I don't count them out of anything from that regard. But I think the two-star, studs and duds is how people talk about it. And if you're building like a fantasy DraftKings lineup or something, the approach is an interesting angle because we have seen it, I think, fail more than succeed recently, to the point where people have kind of soured on it. And I was thinking about this, and I don't know. I think Phoenix is the most obvious recent one, right? Where people go, oh, it doesn't work. Right. And what do you think about that? Because I'm not so sure now. I did agree with it, but after watching Phoenix now, let's be realistic, like, what did they trade salary-wise for KD? Who's playing right now? Like, Jalen Green has not played for them. He's played barely at all. So basically, it's Dylan Brooks for Kevin Durant. And they're playing much better basketball. So was that really because of the salary, or was it getting the right people who fill certain roles? I think that maybe played more into it than, we didn't have the cap space for a good team, because I really don't buy into that.
I think it's not just about the right people who are the stars, but it's the right people around the stars. Right. That are, I think that is your third star, is what else is around, what is around them, and are they bought into it? Are the stars bought into those players? Do those players fit? Do they provide the shooting? Do they provide the necessary size? Whatever it might be in that sort of way. I think that piece of it is critical, because when we're looking, I think, around the league, and we're seeing what the best teams are, depth feels as important to me as ever. And not necessarily depth of how good is your ninth man, but how good is your fourth man? How good is your fifth man? And when one of them is hurt, who do you have off the bench to be able to bring someone else in, rather than a minimum guy who's going to, give you volatility, if anything? And that's what, when I was doing the Giannis activity and going through it, we're talking about the lack of depth that the Wolves have this season. And it's like, okay, we're going to get rid of 3 starters or 3 of your top 6. Terrence Shannon Jr. better actually be good, or right, or Rob Dillingham better be able to step in, or Leonard Miller better have been just this uncovered sort of thing there forever. And I wonder about the feasibility of those things as well. I look around the league. Well, look around the league 10, 15 years ago, and I don't think that was as much the case. You go to the Heat days and, kind of cycling through veteran sort of guys, that made sense for them. And I think they made that work. I just wonder, as the pace of the league changes, as the physicality of the league changes, the importance of having more good players is, in my opinion, it's just what I see. That's what I see to be important in today's day and age. So it's not, you want the two superstars for sure. Ant and Giannis would be incredible. Like that, it's just two incredible players. But look at Milwaukee right now. What you need other things around these sort of star players. So that's just the roadblock I keep running into mentally with the Wolves, but also just with this theory in general, because whatever team trades for Giannis is probably going to find themselves in that spot.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And when this possibility first came up, I thought, well, this is different because this is like, I don't care how you rank anybody. I think anybody would basically say that would be 2 top 7 players. And you could go, oh, I think it's 5 or whatever. Like whatever. I think it's 2 top 7 players in Giannis and Ant. And then you go, well, that's different. And then I thought back and I was like, actually, back when Phoenix made that trade, I would have said Booker and Durant were maybe both top 7 players.
Booker's coming right off of,
Yeah, I think Booker was like viewed in that kind of light coming off that finals appearance and whatnot.
Top 10 for sure.
Yeah, at minimum, at minimum. So it was like they were in that caliber. But I also think along with what you're saying about like how good is your 4th guy, how good is your 6th, 8th, I think there is still a lot to be said for how much do your superstars make the players around them better. And I don't know, like, yes, we're seeing it. Kevin Durant's production is at an all-time high still. Like, he still produces at these insane rates. But I still, when I've watched him anywhere, like, what is he doing to raise the play of those around him? And I just don't know what it is. Always, like, it's certainly, I'm sure it's a little bit easier to play with KD than others. But like, what is he doing to actively, like, when you watch Jokic, it's like, oh yeah, wow, he's making the game a lot easier and simpler for these guys. Or somebody's good defensively is taking a lot of the pressure off of their teammates because, they're taking on a lot of, maybe they're protecting the rim like Rudy does, or like Jaden's defending the best player on the court without needing too much assistance. So everybody's jobs become easier. Jokic is generating a lot of easy shots for other people. I'm not sure what KD is always doing there. Devin Booker, I think, kind of lands in the same boat sometimes. So it's like, how much can Giannis and Ant, if they are paired together, make lives easier for those around them? And I think it matters that when they want to, Giannis and Ant are both good defenders. So that matters too. Because guess what? Like, you talked about volatility or like kind of one-way players. You're going to have a lot of those. Like, this guy only shoots, because that's what we can afford on a minimum. Terrible defensive player.
Now, but you want around Giannis.
Yeah. Can we hide? One guy, maybe if Ant and Giannis are out there and committed to the defensive end, you can pick a guy where you're like, well, we need some shooting. This guy can do that. Can't defend a lick. Like, that kind of stuff all factors in. So I think it's like, yes, your role players and the quality of those guys matter. And I do think we've seen that you can find guys for cheap who can do it, whether it be through the draft or maybe somebody who you don't feel like got a fair shake or wasn't utilized enough in another spot, but you liked what you saw in like limited minutes. You can find those types of guys, but also it can be made a lot easier if like the stars around them are willing to do some of the little things. Like, so it's not, oh, they're willing to cut, screen, all of this stuff. And then they also have these skill sets that alleviates a lot of the pressure off of what your other guys who just aren't as complete of players, they just won't be, are asked to do as well. Like, Dylan Brooks is playing like a star in Phoenix, and he's still doing all of the other stuff. Yeah, like, he's having a remarkable season in that, so that the other guys, the minimum-ish guys, aren't asked to do a bunch of things that maybe they aren't comfortable doing. Where when you watched Beal, Booker, KD together, okay, those guys weren't really moving off the ball. Those guys weren't super locked into like the defensive game plan. So now you have these other 2 guys on the court. It's like, wow, those guys suck. It's like, yeah, they're being asked to do way too much. They're playing a stagnant offense. Like, nothing that Phoenix is doing is making life easier for any of those guys. They're kind of playing to all of their weaknesses, and you can't have that, in my opinion.
Another element that I was thinking of with this is with Giannis coming into Minnesota, or again, don't want this conversation to be necessarily Giannis specific, because I think this is going to come up at every window, as it has with KD in the summertime. Right. This at the deadline. Next summer, there's going to be another guy that's that's linked to the Wolves. So I think an important thing, if I'm Tim Conley and Chris Finch, is what is Ant's desire to play in a 2 superstar setup, And I was thinking about this, like you can look at it retroactively, and Ant, comes in, and Carl is the established all-star, all-NBA guy on the team, and Ant willingly gave that to Cat, was like, yeah, he's the guy, I'm coming to, but like Cat's team, I'll fit in with him, and he did. But Ant's comes in at 19, and he's a star at 21 years old. And I wonder, I would probably approach that differently at 24, 25 years old than I would at 21. Does Ant want to play with a star player like that who is going to just monopolize some of this stuff? I don't think the answer is no, like, oh, I want it to be my team no matter what, and that's what it'd be. I think Ant would get to the point, if it was the wrong star that it didn't feel right with, he would then have frustration once it got there. So I think it's important to, and I don't know what the answer to this is, but finding the right type of superstar that not only fits your whole roster construction, but frankly, more importantly, Ant. What does Ant want to play with? Because this is still going to be about maximizing him more than anything else. And I don't know with Giannis what that fit would be. I'm totally speculating on what Ant's thoughts would be. But do you know what I'm getting at? Like, how much does Ant want this? How much does Ant want another established superstar, former MVP champion to be on his team? I don't think that's a no-brainer yes from him. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Frankly, like I agree with what you're saying. We already see it now, some with like Julius Randle. It gets into a little bit of like when Julius plays a lot of isolation and it bogs down, then it turns into like, and Ant can sometimes start it too, and it turns into your turn, my turn. Mm-hmm. And you can tell they both don't like it. like when they're both contributing to the cause and they both don't like it. It's like, okay, Giannis will have possessions where he's just going to go into isolation, and it might be some drive and kick stuff or whatever, but like it's going to get into some of that. And I think it's important that if something like this were to happen, whether it be with Giannis or somebody else, that the Wolves have evolved a little bit into where Ant has segments of the game where he's off the ball and he's involved in off-ball actions. Sometimes he's just spacing, relocating, that kind of stuff. And he's showing a higher propensity to be able to do that. But yeah, how much do you want it to be an even bigger part of your diet?
Right.
Because he still enjoys most having the ball in his hands, right? Like you could see that, like, and like especially when he gets into those zones, and like he likes being able to run the pick and roll and going off that and step in threes, and that's his bread and butter. So I understand it. How much would he be willing to be like, oh, okay, like this is more of a Giannis isolation situation or whatever. Giannis is running pick and rolls and I'm playing off the ball. I honestly feel like, and it should have worked this way with Cat, it just didn't materialize as much. It's like Ant wanting somebody where the second best player is in the action with him, like, and maybe Giannis would be the screener in that spot, but then where's everybody else on the floor? Envisioning who's still on the roster, that all plays into it. I think he would most prefer the second best player is somebody who every play, that player's strengths are making his life a little easier. Like that's what I kind of envision of what he would view as a perfect fit.
I think that's what most stars would view it as,
right?
And with Giannis specifically, I do think that idea. Well, I was into it with the Giannis and Dame sort of idea, and using Giannis as a screener and being able to play through the two of them. I thought I was really high on that, and obviously that was up and down for many different reasons. But I don't think we have a huge proof of concept on that with Giannis. Great Giannis has been spread around Giannis, and he's a force going to the basket and passing around to him. I'm not sure you can have Giannis on your team and have somebody else be the primary guy, period. Some people might be able to argue that, but I kind of think that's just a truth. So if you trade for him right now, I think functionally you're saying Giannis is our number one. And
yeah, it's just, as the healthy version of him is is a top 3 player in the NBA. So to say otherwise would be disingenuous, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company, and we are doing a live show at Falling Knife on Friday, February 13th at 7 p.m. Happy hour at 6 p.m. You might want to come early. We'll be indoors, not outside like we often are. So there's limited seating in there. Come early, hang out. It's a Friday night. The Rising Stars game will be on. It's All-Star weekend. So get there at 6. Happy hour, 7 o'clock. We'll do the live show, and then Britt and I will be hanging out there for the evening. Like I said, All-Star weekend festivities going on, and it's just always a good time of year. We always do a live show at Falling Knife over the All-Star break time. It's right after the trade deadline, so if the Wolves have made a move, they'll have a new player that we'll be able to discuss there as well. And Britt and I will talk for a while, but we like to take a lot of questions at these things as well. So if you've never come to a live show, make this your first one. Friday, February 13th, happy hour, 6 p.m., live show, 7 p.m. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and let's do a Prize Picks lineup for tonight's Wolves-Grizzlies game. Julius Randle had 27 points in the Saturday matchup against the Grizzlies. He played great. But Jaren Jackson Jr. did not play in that game, so I'm going to say that makes Randle more of a passer and less of a scorer tonight. So I like Randle to have less than 23.5 points in this game, and if you're buying the assists idea, you can take more than 5.5 assists for Randle. To make a lineup, you got to have players from each team, so let's pick a Grizzlies player. Ty Jerome, he made his season debut against the Wolves on Saturday. I thought he looked pretty good, at least in the first half of that game, and he had 20 points. So I'm gonna say I like Jerome to have a solid game again. His number for points is set at 12.5. I'll say more than 12.5 points for Ty Jerome in this game as well. Obviously, many more options over at Prize Picks 2, along with the Super Bowl. If you want to start putting together some Super Bowl lineups, you can do that, or you can pick against the spread. If you do that on the teams tab as well, if you're in Minnesota, make Prize Picks your spot for any Super Bowl wagers that you are making. If you don't have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code Dane. When you sign up, you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane. Again, this is us poking holes in it. To look for it, it'd be a big thing to poke holes in. And would drive tons of winning. I mean, guaranteed 50-win team with health and all those things. Probably even with crappy guys around, or minimum, lesser players around them there. I'm intrigued by the idea. I'm skeptical of the feasibility of it, and would be concerned about the long-term element of it.
Maybe even the near term, right? Like depending on who they gave up, and depending on who was still here. Like, I mean, as we know, with making something like this happen, I don't think the Wolves could be too protective of certain guys or be like, well, then our roster wouldn't really fit. I think it'd be like, how can this work? Okay, let's do it. And then you look at it, it's like, wait a minute, like, oh, we don't have Jaden or Naz, and we still have Rudy. Like whatever. And you're like, oh, this is not going to be a very well-spaced team, in the short term. Like, I think that could be a thing as well. And then certainly they would do their best to make it work. And be like, well, learn to be really, really good defensively, and then complete your roster thereafter. So that
but you're not going to complete your roster till the summer. That's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's the only way to do that.
I'm not saying that the Lakers completed their roster, but we definitely saw that their roster really didn't make sense last year. I'm not saying it makes like a ton more sense this year, but you saw them try to start to address it of like, well, at least there is somebody who can catch a lob dunk, like that kind of stuff. And that's, you really are working with an incomplete thing and trying to just make it work best you can that first year of a trade. I think we see that at the deadline all the time now, that these trades take a lot of time for the stars to figure out how to play together, and then the roster to come together, because you're not going to be able to do it all at once this week if you make this massive splash where, like I said, your main focus is going to be getting the deal done, not well, where does this leave us? And that's a tough spot too, because then instantly everybody would be like, well, now the Wolves, are they the favorite in the West? Are they going to win the title? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, realistically, they wouldn't be who they wanted to be until at least the start of next season. But they would try to win the title this year for sure. But
Right.
it's high expectations with like maybe even a lesser chance of doing it this year. I don't know if that's true. People can knock at that and be like, well, of course they'd have a better chance. I don't know. It would be tough. And I'm not saying it's wrong to do it either. Like I'm very much understanding if you can trade for Giannis, if you can pair Giannis and Nate, you have to do it. I'm like, I totally understand that viewpoint.
Well, and to what we were saying at the beginning, I think the natural and the healthy response is to come into it with a skeptical eye at first, lay out what the issues would be, and then ask yourself, how many of these things can we address internally? How many of them are going to take time to be addressed, and how many of them are never going to be addressed because we have these 2-star players? I don't know. I mean, it'd be fascinating. I struggle with the feasibility of it coming to fruition.
Yeah. I mean, I do think just if Giannis was healthy and defended at a high level in the playoffs, which I just don't know the last time we saw him healthy in the playoffs, honestly, like
right
at his best physically, actually. It's been, I think, probably since they won the title. If you remember, like that Bucks series, he missed the first couple games or whatever, and it's just the Heat series where they were the 1 and lost to the 8. I don't know if he's really been 100% since then, and obviously he's got the injury issue now. So that almost to me is what gives me the biggest pause of the whole thing is like his body and holding up physically. But if he was, and he was playing at like that defensive player of the year level, and we see the way that Ant plays in the playoffs, and maybe he could have a better chance of going through 4 series with that really game changer effort and energy that he has if he was playing alongside like a Giannis. Maybe that would ease it up a little bit to where he'd get to like the conference finals and he would still have a pretty full gas tank, which I don't think he has either of the last 2 years. So those two guys at the levels at which we've seen them play, like at their peak in the playoffs, then that to me is like, maybe that could work. And that would be what would be intriguing to see because we've seen now, like when Ant has to really carry a load or shoulder a big burden or be the guy who's driving the forces on both ends of the court, like that's tiring, that's exhausting. But if they could take turns or whatever, or delegate to one another, maybe it's easier to get farther. I don't know. But I think you saw like when you saw Booker and Durant in their first year together in the second round against Denver and the games that they did win, and offensively, it's like, oh my God, those guys are tremendous. They just didn't have enough defensively. I do think that you could see some version of that with Ant and Giannis, but with better defensive ceilings. So that's why it's intriguing in my mind, and it will never not be intriguing.
Right. Let's move back into reality, or not reality, the present.
Yeah, the present.
What's going on right now with this Wolves team? I do want to talk a little bit about the energy and effort sort of thing, because I've scoffed at it a lot, and I'm being honest. It was the first time I had a little bit of empathy. Part of it was just watching the game and how little Memphis had.
You have to be in the gym, I think, to feel that sometimes, right? Like watching on TV, it's like where you bring in the energy. But if you're in the gym, sometimes I think it's like, wait, yeah, this team is really bad, and like the crowd's not great, and all of that.
So Memphis has the great media seats, right? So I was right behind the Wolves bench, and that was part of it too. Was not just watching the limited Memphis roster that they had, but being in the proximity to see the Wolves players kind of trying to find it. Every time out, I'm kind of looking over there and trying to listen in and see. And it wasn't like they were inherently flat, or they were like, oh, we're just going to roll through this thing. They were trying to find that gear, and they did for like a minute or two here, and then it would kind of relent every time out. Finch is yelling at them. The number one thing when you have a problem is acknowledging that you have a problem. And that gives me a little bit of the empathy, because I thought I asked Ant about it in the locker room, and to his credit, he does at least cop to it and acknowledge what it was. I thought this was his best answer that he's given on this. I'm gonna play this. It's a little long, but I think it's worth listening to. Did he finish kind of let you guys have it at halftime?
Yeah, in the halftime and after the game, yeah.
Even after the game?
Yeah. He wasn't happy about this one at all.
So, I mean, it's kind of a pattern that, if the energy's not there and then that happens and you guys kind of come back. And is it just kind of the flow of the season and you guys are tired? Like, why is it happening so often, I guess?
That's a great question, Dane. I mean, like I'm always say, it starts with me. But I mean, nights like this, man, it's super hard to find not the why, but like the energy to put behind it on every play. Just because like they missing guys not playing. So I feel like it's a normal thing to think as far as a group. Like, oh yeah, we got these guys. We just got, like Coach said, we just got to do enough to win. But that ain't really. He ain't happy with that. He not satisfied with that, and we shouldn't be either. I mean, I was telling Slim like, cause he said something like, I'm not gonna let up on y'all. Like if we bullshit on games like this, I'm gonna be on y'all ass until y'all stop, bullshitting. And I told Slim, I was like, I mean, he 100% right. I said, cause like we could have played the first 24 minutes hard as shit and been up 30 points, and who knows, maybe not played the second half. And I said, maybe we can shut his ass up that way if we just come out and play the way he wants us to play on the defensive end and give it our all. But like I said, man, it's always gonna be hard. It's gonna be tough. It's 82 games, so just happy to get the win, honestly.
I like the second half.
The second half.
If you're up 30 at halftime, you would have played the third quarter.
Yeah. Have you met?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I like that line though. Not the why. It's hard to not find the why, but the energy, and that I think encapsulates what I see this team do. I think sometimes, to be like, I'm not sure Ant finds the why sometimes, but again at that game, I think he did, but the gears just kind of start grinding when, frankly, you don't actually need all the energy, and they didn't need all they blew out the Grizzlies in that game largely.
Never really in danger, right?
Never.
Not like the Pelicans game where they got weighed down and had to come back in New Orleans or whatever. Not that. It was not that.
Yeah, and we did one right after that game, and I did roll my eyes at that. When Chris and I, did the podcast after that one. But I don't know. I think this is a bigger indicative of a bigger issue around the league. You and I were texting about this the other day or whatever. This is just so common in the NBA. It is so common that night to night, you're going to play a team and Ty Jerome's going to be the best player out there for him. Or Brandon Pajemski last week when they played the Warriors in a game. And I don't know, it's an important thing to be able to do as a team, to be able to get yourself up for it, because this is just the reality of the situation. You're going to play a ton of these games every single season in the NBA because the NBA has a weird injury rest, too many games, tanking, whatever problem. It has problems. It's not good. I'm not excusing that, but like, this is life. This is life in the NBA right now, specifically for a good team who does play their players. Julius is going to maybe play in every game this season. Ant is playing through at least bumps and bruises often. Like Rudy's 33, plays most nights. Even Mike Conley, it probably plays more than he should nights. Like the Wolves are trying to put guys out there, and I don't know what the percentage is, but a quarter of the games the opponents are not doing it, and it creates this type of issue.
I mean, we're at every game in this 4-game winning streak. The opponent has missed at least 3 of their top 8 guys.
Is that right? Jeez.
I mean, every one, across the board. And that was, you look at. I was watching Thunder Nuggets for a little bit last night, and I was like, oh, okay, Thunder are playing well, down 3 of their guys now, like same situation they had against the Wolves. And I was like, well, the Nuggets are still missing 3 of their starters too. And it's like, this is like billed as this big game. It's like Thunder Nuggets. It's like, all right, Thunder are down 3 of their top 8, and Nuggets are down 3 of their top 5 or whatever, 3 of their top 6 players. It's like, this is the NBA. I mean, it is like, I understand, like, not the why. And because you could tell it, and he would say, yeah, like we have to bring it every night if we want to be a championship team. We have to set that standard, all of that. So you can understand that, but the energy to do it when it's like, that's just not required, like, it's like if you went to like the rec gym, and this is not an analogy. I'm not saying that these other teams are that, but you're going up against like these like middle school kids, like, can we play against you guys or whatever? And you could like block their shot every time if you wanted to. Right. But you're not going to play as hard as you can, and again, I'm not comparing that to what they're facing, but just like something people can wrap their minds around it. You're not going to play or you're going to like bullshit a little bit. It's like, I'm going to shoot from 30 feet, or whatever.
Totally.
And that every 4 nights in a row now, it's not like, well, here is one game against a team that's missing 3 of their top 8. Can you still bring it? It's every game. It's probably going to be again tonight. I haven't looked at Memphis' injury report, but every game. That's it. So it's a totally different thing of like, you're going up against these teams that don't have full rosters or anything close to it every single night. Can you keep bringing it? It's like, we don't need to keep bringing it, like it's the why you want to set like your standard. You want to be this team. You want to be like, every night we bring it, we build these habits like calluses or whatever. And so when you need it, when you got to rely upon it, you have it built up. But man, when it comes at you again and again and again, it's like, well, this just feels silly or whatever. Like, or it's like the internal drive is going to lessen at some point until you see something on your schedule. Like, we were not surprised at all when the Wolves played their best game against the Thunder, because even if the Thunder are missing 3 of their top 8, it's still the Thunder and Shea's still out there. Yeah. So we know they're going to get there. Like, the Wolves are going to have that one circled. But these other ones, it's like all the guys they know are not playing in Memphis, like that's tough. It's, like, especially like when I said it's again and again and again. So I don't blame anybody for it. It's the reality of the NBA. It's an unfortunate reality of the NBA, and nobody likes it. And the league should look about it. Like, I know they're not going to dip games. I get that. But man, if you don't, you're going to get this. And if I turn on Peacock or something or Prime and I'm like, this team and this team are playing, and I look up, I'm like, never mind. And that's like, we literally, like, that was a Peacock game on Monday. Yeah. Warriors, Wolves, no Ant. And on the Warriors, nobody. Like, and like I said, like, it was a big game on Peacock, I think, again last night. Like, oh, the Thunder don't have this guy, and this guy. Oh, the Nuggets don't have this guy. And the league is just like, well, Shea and Jokic are out there, so hopefully nobody notices. Like, that's where we're at.
It's interesting because it's going to define the standings in the West. The teams at the top of the West who have a better approach in this predicament.
And some guys are hurt. I don't want to say, like, some guys are legitimately hurt. So it's not like everybody's just being like, oh, we're just resting. Like, some guys are hurt, like, we understand that.
I'm just saying, look at the standings, and you got the Wolves 2 games behind the Nuggets, who are the 3, and I think a game and a half behind the Spurs, who are the 2, or 2.5 games behind them. And how many games have the Wolves lost this season for this reason? The teams who have the best approach in this stupid position to be in are going to be the best team. I mean, going to finish with the best records and have the best seeds and thus have the easier pathway in the playoffs. I mean, look no further than Oklahoma City last season. I mean, they, like, almost to a nerdy extent, get up for whoever. And that's what made them have as good of a record as they did before. It made me go, I don't know, maybe 72-10 this year, because I watched a ton of Thunder games last season, and they would do the, like, let's get up by 30 by halftime, and then they play in the third quarter. But I mean, oftentimes Shea or whoever, J-Dub, didn't need to play in the fourth quarter there. So I don't know. It's a silly thing, but I think it's a real thing in the competition of the season, in the competition of your seeding and what it's gonna mean for the playoffs. So the Wolves having a growing better approach to this, which I would say they do, at least in the sense that it's being acknowledged, is a signal that you're going to win a couple more games than maybe we thought.
Just looking at it, I mean, in the West, I think I'd have to do the math. Like, on some of these, I think 20-6 is better than 18-5, but I don't know percentage wise. But otherwise, they have the second best record in the West against teams below 500. It goes Thunder at 25-3, and the Wolves are 20-6. Wow. Which, like I said, assuming that's better than 18-5, which the Spurs have, that would put the Wolves at the second best record in those games. And you might think of a different game where maybe a team above 500 was missing a couple guys, and the Wolves should have beat them or something. Maybe that one pops in, but like, every team loses games like that, and the Wolves have lost fewer than everybody else that not named the Thunder. So, like, that's where when you only focus on your team, you think like, oh my gosh, this team, it's like, doing better than everybody else is, basically. And that's partially why they're right there in the mix and could be the 2 seed. Like, if they are the 2 seed this year when this all shakes out, or the 3 or whatever, like, that could be a big reason why. And part of it is because Chris Finch does demand better. He doesn't let these slide without being like, 82 games. What are you going to do? He is somebody who pushes for great performance every single time out. Doesn't always get it, but pushes for it and lets them know when they don't deliver it. And I think that's a big reason as to why they are improving in that regard. because they hear it again and again and again and again.
Yeah, don't envy Finch needing to be the guy who's going in to yell every single time or be the enforcer of the, if you're going to keep bullshitting, I'm going to let you know you're bullshitting, you know? That's like parenting.
Yeah, I think what's impressive is like that you heard it from Ant and probably Naz or whoever else in the locker room after that game.
Yeah.
And he's been saying these same things for how many years now? And it does not feel like it's like it's fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah.
It never has, which is always the thing. Like when teams eventually do, it's like, oh, the voice got old or whatever. Like it does not, the message still always seems to get through, which is, I think, impressive because it's not easy to do, especially with younger players still. Like it's never fallen on like deaf ears there.
Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark, and let's talk about something that's probably a little bit more exposed than you think, and that is your online data. I know I'm genuinely getting to the point where I'm like freaked out by how specific my ads are getting that are delivered to my phone, and that's where Surfshark's VPN comes in. It's your go-to solution for secure internet access. Surfshark creates a virtual private network that encrypts your entire internet activity, hiding your IP address and making your online activity invisible. When I'm using public Wi-Fi, like at an airport where I'm traveling to these games, Surfshark prevents anyone from trying to snoop on my data. Using Surfshark's VPN also allows me access to geo-blocked content. So like when I'm on the road right now, I'm able to watch games out of market. I can watch anywhere in the country without being blocked out regionally. But my personal favorite add-on is called Alternative ID, which generates a brand new online identity and email address for me to use. So when websites ask for my information, I give them this stunt double details of this identity, and my real personal data stays completely private. You get all that alongside lightning fast VPN speeds and privacy protection for unlimited devices on a single account, giving you the complete toolkit to stream, shop, and surf securely. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/DaneMoore or use code DaneMoore at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. That link and code are in the show notes and episode description below. Let's do Naz or Mike. Which one do you want to do next?
Either one. Naz.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you about Naz because he had a bad first month of the season that kind of depresses the numbers overall a bit. I'm kind of mentioning it on here for the last couple of weeks of like, I think this is the best I've ever seen Naz play. Not like it's way, way better than the 6th Man of the Year season 2 years ago. But I think specifically when it comes to the three-point shooting and what threes he's taking, how quick he's taking them, the freedom he feels like he has or has given himself or Finch has empowered him to have, it's just more of a weapon than I've ever seen before. Even if maybe, I don't know if his shot is making more threes in open gyms or whatever. He's become a better shooter, but it's more of a weapon. Naz Reid seems like more of a weapon than I ever remember before. And when we talk about this team, you know, lacking depth and needing consistent production off of the bench, I feel as confident as ever of the like theoretical return of a Naz game. There's still going to be flat Naz games. He had 0 points against the Warriors a few games back.
When everybody was flat. Yeah.
When everybody was, and it was a weird game. But do you get what I'm saying? Where it feels like it's another level to me. It feels like more of a problem to opposing teams where it's like this isn't just like a guy coming off a bench. This is like a primary player you need to account for given what his unique skill set is at his position. I've been really impressed by it.
You know what it reminds me of? Like last year, we saw a few games where I think they had some guys out, like a lot of guys out, and it was like basically Jaden and Naz offensively. I want to say one was like the Wizards, maybe one was the Blazers. And you saw like Naz kind of showed the full bag of what he could do off the bounce and stuff. And like kind of when you were running an offense through him, and it was like, oh, it was almost fun to imagine like, what would it look like if he had like this massive role or he was like a main cog in your offense?
Yeah.
Like what could it blossom into? I think what we're seeing this year is like more of the stuff he was doing then, like just mixed in to still playing good team offense now. Like he's comfortably like passing up like a catch and shoot, like getting to something he's more comfortable with off the bounce, and pulling it like he would if he was like the number one guy on the court, but he's just doing it still within like the rhythm of the offense.
Yeah.
So he's like expanding what he's doing, but still doing it within himself, where it doesn't really feel like he's forcing anything. And maybe it would if they don't go down, because like I know like sometimes it could be like, oh, that was a tough shot, but he's so comfortably making all of them, it's seeming less and less like a tough shot for him. But I don't know if it just is a continued growth of confidence and comfort, both with himself, his role on the team, his role in the offense, and just maybe his abilities. But he has found like that really nice mix of he's doing some stuff that kind of makes you go, oh my God, like these are not just like catch and shoot. These are tough shots, but he just looks so confident as he's pulling them all, where there's just no second guessing himself. And it is cool to see. Like it's a constant growth and like expansion of what he does. And we've always talked about him being a guy where every year he looks a little bit better, a little bit more confident, grows, adds something to his game. And like right now, it's just like that off the dribble stuff is really good. And it just makes him such a threat, because like, okay, we've seen what he can do. Like he's very comfortable playing off the catch, and if he's willing to still pull from deep off the dribble, like now you have to guard him even a little differently still. And I don't know, it's you run
And
out
who
of
do you guard
ways.
him with?
Exactly right, the type of player,
Kind of like the cat thing. I mean,
Right.
you know, the whole Steven Adams didn't play in the Grizzlies series. Like, I don't know. In a playoff series, I'm not putting anybody with slow feet on him, on Naz ever, you know, because even if it's not him, like he's not taking those guys off the dribble in the same way that Cat does, but Naz can quickly get into actions, you know, and you have to more so like chase him. Whereas like Carl, he could just run past you at the basket. But he's getting to be a nightmare guard, you know, to guard, period. And you know, we've been saying this thing for years, and I think it's true. You know, Naz is good enough to be a starter. But what we're seeing often is pockets of times where I think Naz looks as good as a second or third player,
right,
second or third best player. Not that he could be a third best player on a great team, but he has periods of time where he looks like it, and can do that, and can do it somewhat consistently. And it's a really, I think it's a really critical wrinkle to this team to be able to break them out of when they do fall into their ruts and Julius doesn't have an advantage, or Ant's shot isn't going, or they're putting two on Ant. It's a wildly valuable extra cog, you know, that's coming off the bench, but honestly is, I don't know, top 50 player, 60 player in the league. Like that's, I don't know. It seems like the stock price is going up on Naz Reid, and that's huge, given that he did sign a pretty big contract this summer.
It is one of those things where, and I view Jaden in the same light of, we don't know if they went somewhere else or Minnesota's roster changed or whatever, like, and their responsibilities just went up, you know, like, and it's like, oh, now you go somewhere and now you're the second best offensive player on this team. Or Jaden's the third best offensive player, whatever. And like the touches go up and the responsibilities go up. And it's like, yeah, you're really good at that. We want you to do that when you're on the court in these lineups, but we want you to do a lot more initiating or whatever. Like Naz has talked about how he thinks more initiating is the next step in his game. And he feels comfortable and confident doing that. Jaden feels comfortable and confident doing that. Like we might always just see these versions under this current roster construction, but you do see the signs that more is there, and maybe they can keep implementing themselves more within this current roster. But I think as you see like a front office and you think about the future of your team and where you go and moves you make in the future, you go, oh, okay, but we do think that we could maybe let this person go or whatever, or add here and subtract here, because these guys would be willing and certainly able to fill some of these gaps, whether it be scoring, playmaking, whatever. Because I think they can do it, and they're showing glimpses in games that they could. And like,
right,
you know, you talk about creation and whatnot offensively, like that the shots Naz makes can kind of be made out of nothing. So and that is pretty valuable in the playoffs and whatnot. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value to it, and it does open up possibilities, not even just for like what they can do now, but how you could build a team in the future. And all of that factors in. It factors in, frankly, like when you get to the trade deadline and it's like, oh, we want to add this, but then, oh, we'd be giving up that. And we don't know what that would turn into eventually. So it's fun to think about, but it also like complicates things too.
It does complicate. That's a good way to put it. I just want to play this Finch clip, just talking about what got Naz's season back on track.
Point volume and percentage is way up. It seems like he's taking a little bit more movement. Is he doing something to be taking more threes for you?
No, not. I don't think he's doing anything particular. Like he's getting them in all different ways. He's getting them. He has this little snatch back three, which is really good. A lot of time that comes at kind of the end of transition. He will shoot it off pin downs. A lot of the same ways he has always gotten them. I think just more opportunity.
He's talked about just kind of free in his own mind too, or confident, whatever. Is it? Have you seen it like a psychological progression from him, or this is? I mean, I know he had a lot going on at the beginning.
Yeah, no doubt. But it starts like if you look tonight, he had 9 rebounds and 5 assists, and it's with Naz or with anybody, but Naz is, his season really started to gain momentum when he just focused on rebounding and doing other things and not worried about his shot because his shot didn't go in early in the season, and then his hustle plays, his chase down blocks, just the things that he was doing just to make things happen, and that's kind of sparked him, then the offense followed suit.
So I think what's been we talked about that, right? Of when Naz wasn't hitting shots, he started doing other different things. There's more hustle plays, and it did really the stat to look at was the rebounding. He really focused on rebounding, back in December or whatever. What I think is cool about this is everything we just talked about offensively and the ways he's getting to his shot, and it's more of a weapon. But the other stuff hasn't gone away. Like, it's every game I'm looking over at the thing, I'm like, wow, it's like the third quarter. Naz has 8 rebounds. Remember 3 years ago? You're like, all right, Naz had 22, 2 and 1. Like need a rebound here, buddy. And I think the commitment to that from Naz to keep doing the non-sexy things while doing the sexy things is commendable, and I think is actually a good representation of like who he is as a player, kind of his humble beginnings in the league. Like he's never been able to have a guaranteed role to fall back on just based on being a 40% 3-point shooter. Like he's been that for most of his career, and that has not guaranteed him a role on the team. And I think that sinks into with him. I think he realizes that, and he's not a great defender. He fouls too much. There's flaws in his game, but there's also effort in his game. And that piece of it, I think, is important, especially if you're keeping it in tandem with this sort of offensive growth.
Yeah, I mean, so many of his fouls defensively are trying to make a play when he's not in position to make it.
Yep.
Like he's not. And part of it is like you got to get yourself in better position, but it's like trying to block a shot he has no business trying to block, so he's jumping 8 feet sideways. Right. But you can't fault the effort on. He's like trying to get a stop, even though it's probably going to be like an and one or something. But like that's the stuff where you go, okay, not great, but it's at least with the best intentions in mind. And I think like he always has the best intentions in mind. And that's where like the team, the front office, like really challenged him. We talked about the rebounding thing of like, get 10 rebounds in a game. Like when he wasn't making a shot, their message was like, get us 10 rebounds in any game.
You're going to play 30 minutes.
Yeah. 10 rebounds. Don't care how you shoot. Get 10 rebounds, 10 rebounds, 10 rebounds. And then he got double digits in like 2 in a row or 3 out of 4 or whatever the case was. And so I kind of agree with Finch that got him going, but I think he's an easy guy to coach and like, okay, yeah. And I think part of that is because Naz is somebody who views himself as somebody who plays the right way, who makes the right play, who is unselfish, like who knows what it takes to win and will do what it takes to win. So when he falls out of it, when you remind him of here's what you have to do, he's quickly like, yep. Because he prides himself on being that and wanting to be somebody who's doing it so we can hold other people accountable to do it as well, or being an example of here's what we have to do.
Right.
I'm what we have to do out there. Follow me. I'll make the extra pass. I'll do all of this stuff. Like, that's the player I am. Like, he really prides himself on that. So when he falls short of it, he's pretty easy to remind him, and he'll try to get back on the train of it.
And that's why he fits with everybody. That's
Right.
I mean, along with his skill set that is kind of inherently malleable, but that's why he's often part of the solution to a lineup that, is that lineup going to work? Or can we, the three bigs thing, or can we play him here? Can we just go with him? Like, he is so malleable and plays within the system that Finch wants to play that it's just a great player to have coming off of your bench, even if we think he's stepped up beyond that. Let's move over to Conley. Just because I thought we've been talking about Conley a lot, and you and I have been, I would think, would be labeled as Conley, defenders, but we have both kind of changed our tune, even over the past couple of months, and acknowledging just the reality of there's things this Mike's not doing anymore. And with that, where my mind goes is, okay, the reality of the situation is Mike used to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and he's doing Y, can only do Y and Z, and sometimes he can only do Z, So to that end, I've always thought about it of like, I'm not always, but more recently thought about it of, I don't know if a role needs to be totally protected for Mike. Like, he's earned this and he gets those 16 minutes a night, the multiple shifts. Just he's not doing much of anything from a scoring perspective. But I thought I'm going to play this clip from Finch. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with what it says. My point of playing it is to highlight he's not going anywhere. Mike is going to play. And again, could disagree with it, but that's to me that's a bit of a difference. Here's Finch on Conley.
Mike was outstanding. He didn't, he didn't score it, but he did a lot of really great things out there. Plus 18 indicates that.
Can you elaborate with Mike a little bit? Maybe not even just specific to this game. I mean, he hasn't been shooting it well. He hasn't been scoring it well, but he's consistently seems like he's making an impact. How would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, he well, first, he's super smart. Defensively, he covers a lot of ground. I mean, he's really good on his guy. He's really good with the game plan. He's great in help situations. He's great navigating chaos when those moments come up. He had a couple block shots tonight. I mean, he just competes. And he's got so much experience. And at the other end of the floor, he's he hasn't made shots, but he's not really getting a high volume number of shots. But he's just such a safe pair of hands.
Jace, what have you made of this?
Yeah, I will say, like, talking to multiple people, they will say, like, hey, when Mike's out there defensively, like, he's still covering for multiple people. They stand by that of, like, he's covering up for errors out there defensively that people are making in the game plan, because he is seeing those errors and sprinting over to try to, like, make up for it. And so when Finch says covering ground, I think that plays into it of, like, he is sometimes racing across the court because somebody else made a game plan error that he diagnosed right away. So I think that's fair, because there are possessions where, look, like, fully admit, like, the offensive woes, like, you can't be shooting the ball like Jalen Clark out there. Like, that can't be, like, Mike, if you wanted to say, like, and this is true in the past, like a low turnover, safe pair of hands, like Finch says, like 3 and D kind of guy, I think there's a lot of value to that if he's going to go out and shoot 40% from 3 or whatever. He's not shooting anywhere close to that. Like, it's been a real negative shooter. And so that hurts, because they do have a lot of possessions that look like it ends in something, and then it ends in Mike's hands and it doesn't pay off. And that's deflating. I will say, when I watch defensively, and there are possessions where if you watch just his efforts, and it's like covering multiple guys, multiple different actions, and the most active defender on that side of the court, and then, like, finishing with the box out, where it's like, okay, yeah, like, that's more effort and attention to detail than anybody else is giving on that end. And it can set a little bit of a tone defensively. So I think if you want to say that's why he's out there, I think that's fair, actually. Because if you want to be a defensive team, how do you take somebody who's doing that out? You have to stand for it at some point. You have to commit to it at some point. And I think Mike still represents a lot of that. I do think that he probably has to do it in shorter shifts. I think if you're going to do it, I think 12 minutes makes more sense, because I do watch those possessions. And then I watch Mike go up and down a couple more times and he's gassed.
Yep.
And that's fine. Like, it takes a lot of effort to do what he's doing in some of those, like more effort than other people are giving, but you can see it wearing on him. So I think maybe like a 6-minute shift on each side of the half is fair if it's like, hey, he's out there because defensively he's carrying out everything we need him to do, and he's giving multiple efforts, and he's kind of like, he's giving us answers within the chaos defensively. That's all great, but it's exhausting. And at his age, I really do think you see like longer shifts. He's really winded. So I think if that's going to be it, that's fair. But I think the shift maybe should be shortened, because I just watch him come in at 6 or 7, and I get it. I'm watching why that's happening, but he looks winded. So that would be my only counter to that. Is I actually agree, because sometimes I'll just do it to be like, well, let me watch him defensively. And it's like, yeah, okay, a couple really impressive possessions here. But it clearly takes it out of him at this age.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I see that too. We see the activity defensively. We see the game plan discipline, and that's, again, nerdier stuff where you need to kind of be spotlighting a player to really looking at it to see what that is. And that stuff is huge in the NBA, especially in a spread floor NBA. Your positioning as an off-ball defender has never been, more important than it is now. But it's kind of hidden. When you get scored on in isolation, and when you get overpowered in those scored ons in isolation, it's loud.
Yeah,
right? It's so much louder than the rotated over as the low man, or helped the gap in this situation. But the isolation stuff is a problem, and I would highlight it particularly for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And while it'd be great to have him out there for overall defensive competence and stuff, I am holding on to this being physically overpowered part in the playoffs. I think will happen as teams will seek that more often against Mike. If it's 12 minutes in a game, 16, whatever, the number is there. And then if that is the case, and Mike can't hold up against 6'5", he can't guard Dylan Harper or whatever, or Stephen Castle in a playoff series, then what is it that in isolation, then what is it that you're bringing? Now it's only sure hands. And now you are pretty much out there as just an IQ boost to the team. And that margin's getting thin. That margin's getting thin at that point of the value of that. But this team, I think, is uniquely in need of that. The injection of basketball IQ. Again, where I was sitting, it was interesting. I'm right behind Finch, so I can hear him when they're calling the plays and stuff. And I'm not trying to, rip on Bones here, but there was multiple times where he did not run the play correctly. And Finch is saying other side, he was like, it's on the other side. Like Bones wasn't doing it. He wasn't doing it right. And it happened numerous times in that game. Whereas there's another time where Finch calls something, Mike says, no, Mike was like, no, we do it this way. And Finch goes, okay, yeah, you're right. Go ahead. Again, I don't know how to distinguish exactly the value of Mike having that, where Bones in this example doesn't have that. But then conversely, Bones can get all the way to the basket and score for you. He's shooting better for you. He's injecting more pace there. My point is and that last game affirmed it for me a little bit more, that there are these other things that, frankly, even you and I, who try to care about this stuff and learn about it and know more about it, there's a lot of that stuff that Mike is doing and on the floor. And I want to accentuate that stuff is happening on the floor. And it's not just that he's playing because he's a leadership guy in the locker room. That's not what it was. Like, he can still do that. That part of it's overrated. It's the leadership and the execution on the floor. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So I don't know. I go both ways with the Mike thing of it. I think where I would land is somewhere on this spectrum between Finch thinking he's outstanding, and what the Wolves fan base seems to think about him, because I see the flaws and I see the advantages, both happening simultaneously.
I think that's a great perspective from Saturday, because like our seats even at Target Center aren't good enough for that. Like we can't we can look across, and we do look across and like see like what reactions are like when plays happen, but we can't hear what they're saying. Like our seats aren't good enough, and our seats are probably only getting worse with time there. It's the way it's moving. We used to be closer to the Wolves bench. Now we're gonna who knows where we are the next season. It's probably not going to be down by the floor. And there are very few seats that are like the ones left in Memphis where you are close to that. Like Dallas gives you a sense of that. But there are fewer and fewer, and like so that's where. And it's not like Finch is going to sit there post game and tell us like, oh, why don't you ask Finch or whatever. It's not going to be like Bones screwed up this play twice. Like they're not going to do that because that's bad. Like that wouldn't work out in your favor as a coach. Like. So it is kind of like a rare perspective to get a little
it was
like what matters to a coach. Like that you're probably doing it the right way, that they can count on that you're going to execute, like especially for this team, like when execution so often can be like that's blamed on the coach too. Like let's be honest, when they don't execute late in games, when they do things incorrectly, when the end of gameplay they didn't do it right, well then it's the coach's fault. Like so who are you going to want to play? Probably the guy who's going to run the play right? Like that would probably be the way that I would lean. But yeah, you see like
and even maybe too over exaggeratedly so. Like we get why Finch is moving in that direction. The question is, are you overcompensating?
Overvaluing it? Yes.
And I don't know. I'm not a coach. But that's the difference between your friend who texts you angry, like, why the fuck does Mike Conley play? And what Finch is saying there. Like that is the difference. And I don't know if Finch is pursuing that exactly correctly. But that's why he's doing it. And that's why I wanted to play that clip and talk about it.
Yeah, it's good to play it because we talk about it. We can talk about every episode of like, should Mike be playing more? Should this guy be playing more? Blah, blah, blah. But like at some point, if you actually want to learn something, here's why he is. And you can decide on your own, like whether that's overvalued or not. And because we've talked about it 10 times. And I don't even know how much more we have to say about it, frankly. Yes, I think Bones provides more of an offensive boost. Bones a little bit more up and down defensively. I've seen that too, but again, that doesn't always show up either. Oftentimes we gauge whether Bones played well or not, but on like how many threes he made, and same thing with Mike. Like, this guy shot. Yeah, right. Yeah, Bones went 2 for 4 from deep. Mike went 0 for 3. Bones good, Mike sucks. Like that, in basketball is more than that, but that does matter too. I'm not also downplaying that the shot making matters, and Bones can get to the rim, all of that, and like Bones and Mike have played alongside each other, so it's not always like one or the other. But yes, they have to find, and it's been the constant thing with this team, physical ability versus execution, both in terms and like mentality and all of it, approach. Just actually doing what you're supposed to do out there with the game plan, offensively and defensively. They're constantly trying to find that balance. It's kind of like this team's overarching story. And if they can ever strike it right, that would probably be what got them over the top. But it is a little bit of give and take seemingly everywhere across the roster.
I've been kind of not as big on the addressing point guard, combo guard at the deadline, I think, as others have been. But I will acknowledge that if you get that player and that player is able to be the player that you traded for him to be, that does resolve some of this problem, and it's not a half measure of Bones and a half measure of Mike here. And you're kind of like, was that anything? If they could get a player who would provide you some of the Mike things, I mean, Mike's got a PhD in this stuff. If you could get that while giving you some of the Bones stuff, like, yes, that would be better. That would be better. But but Bones can't do 90% of the Mike stuff, and Mike can't do 90% of the Bones stuff. So there would be value in, waving your wand and getting that in one player, and, more power to Tim if he can do it. But it would solve some things.
I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, man, I just don't know, like, and maybe like an AO exists for Chicago. That makes a little bit of sense, but like, who is giving you that boost and not sacrificing anything defensively? Because that would be my final point on all of this. Like, obviously the next time we talk will be post-trade deadline of like, no move you can make you worse defensively, because that would be, to me, torpedoing what you have, because we've clearly seen it. It's your path to winning a championship is being a really good defensive team. We see that when they play really well. It always starts in the defensive end. The defense always sparks the offense. It always sparks everybody getting touches, getting involved, getting into like what the guys talk about of like flow, of everybody getting touches within the flow. Jaden talks about it when they play well. Naz talks about it when they play well. Always comes because they get in transition and the ball starts naturally moving, and natural movement, because it's not like it's not the status quo for like how Ant and Julius play, but it comes naturally when you get stopped. So like anything that gets you better offensively but worse defensively, I think is a mistake. And we'll see what they do off of that. Can they address like bench scoring, backcourt scoring, whatever, while not getting worse defensively? Because then that could be a win in my mind. Otherwise, I think that you would probably be fixing one hole, but actually making yourself worse, because when they don't get stops, they're terrible offensively. Like they are just like either both things are going or nothing's going, generally speaking. Unless they're playing a really bad team and letting that team score, then yeah, you can do whatever you want offensively. But against good teams, it's either going really well or it's going really bad, because one always feeds into the other.
And that's why it's, to me, it's the Nickeil Alexander-Walker archetype. Right. And that's why the player in this whole trade season I've been most encouraged by, hypothetically, is Trey Jones for that level of player. And I don't think that's been poo-pooed to me as a likely scenario, just given the length of his contract. But I still think I don't regret talking about it, because that's what I'm talking about. It's what you're talking about is a guy that is, it's not 90% on one side of the ball and 10% on the other side of the ball, because I think that would be problematic no matter how you flip that, right? All defense guy, no offense. All offense guy, no defense. You're going to create yourself a new problem, or you're not going to solve what we're talking about here in this Bones Mike combination thing and removing the issue itself. So it'll be fascinating to see what Tim does. But to me, at least when we talk about the backcourt, show me a guy who's the Nickeil Alexander-Walker archetype. I just think that's what this team needs more than anything in the backcourt, relative to the price that it would cost.
And it'll be interesting, because like you could find that. I'm not saying like it exists, but man, like when they traded for Nickeil, we didn't think that was it.
Sure.
So like, I mean, this could be like deep scouting. Like we're looking and we see this there, and it could be something where you're like, Wolves didn't do anything at the deadline, and then or barely anything, or all they got was this guy. Like those that exists, and I'm not even saying the Wolves saw it when they traded for it, but those guys, like you could say, hey, I've actually liked what this guy's done in small samples or whatever. We could just add him and see. And maybe that's all they end up with. They probably try to do more, but anyway, it's we always talk about these names of these guys who have cemented roles, and they're like, oh, you add that, like Keon Ellis obviously is widely talked about. Now he's traded to Cleveland as somebody who kind of fit that mold, but you could find in other spots if you're tactful, crafty, whatever, like, or just paid attention, and we'll see what they do.
Yeah, and even paid attention to, and this is why they have front offices of 1 million people who are not only studying the film and the stats of what the players are doing in the NBA, but have a familiarity from previous steps, from college, from whatever, of an idea. I mean, they're ultimately bets at the end of the day, but they have a different set of information, obviously, than we do, of just popping in and watching a random NBA non-Wolves game, and that's what the best front offices do. And they make something out of close to nothing. And the Wolves have close to nothing in terms of assets to be able to trade for something. But it'd be a hell of a pull. It'd be a hell of a pull if they could cement some of that and present Finch with another option off the bench that isn't a half measure, where everybody coming off the bench other than Naz Reid is a half measure and will be a half measure no matter what. Jalen Clark's not going to come out the final 32 games of the season and be an answer for you offensively. Bones Highland isn't going to be a lockup guy. Mike's not going to start running tons of pick and roll and hitting the floater again. Like those are not happening. Maybe TJ and Rob, you could say, just because we don't know, like there's a little bit there, but
The light bulb goes off or something.
Yeah. It's really a setup of like, these guys are what they do. And Bones is doing a great job at what he does.
Yeah.
You know, and Jalen, you know, is doing his like they're fine, but they're not, to me, they're not what this team needs. Something else. And then those guys can all file down one spot. That would be the most ideal situation, but the assets are limited. So we'll see. It's what we've got, like 3 more days.
I like how I was saying doing something with nothing. That was my favorite part of like when Mark Stein or whoever, somebody reported that like the Bucks wanted like all the picks or something for Giannis. I was like, the Wolves are probably like, done. Can have all of ours.
All of them.
Yeah.
Like one swap. We
got yours.
It is crazy how little the Wolves have. You know, like just like looking at the other, I was like, oh, the Wolves are asset poor. But I'm looking at the other teams. I'm like, oh, the Wolves are below the poverty line in terms of, and you know, love our guy Matt Lloyd, but remember his line at around the draft when we all interviewed him in the scrum of like, well, people say we don't have any assets. It's like these young guys, and you know, even Terrence and Rob and Leonard Miller and Jalen Clark. It's like, well, that just hasn't proven to be. Like, there's no way that those guys have more asset value today on February 2nd than they did when Matt said that on June 28th or whatever. That hasn't shook out, and maybe some of that's Finch for not playing him, whatever. But
you want to be the only one where you'd be like, maybe more people have. And even still, that's us watching a small sample size. I wouldn't blame other people around the league for being like, what? This guy's played like five games. Yeah, you know, like that's how it always works. I'm like, I'm not putting any stock in that, you know, because teams don't. You know, like I promise you, the Wolves value you on more than any other team in the NBA.
100%.
You know,
no, absolutely. All right, man. This was fun. I'll see you back in Minneapolis. I don't know, sometime after the trade. I don't know what the Toronto, and then
Friday. They play New Orleans on Friday. Yeah,
another good one.
Another good one. Zion at Target Center is actually usually pretty.
Yeah, that's your guy. Yeah, maybe trade for him. All right, you guys can follow Jace on Twitter at Jace Frederick. Read everything he's doing over at the Pioneer Press, and he's on here with me every Monday, and we'll keep doing that, and we'll see next time. We'll have a player they traded for to talk about. I would assume something happens for this Wolves team. Appreciate you doing it. Coming up next, so the Wolves play tonight, the second game against the Grizzlies. I'll be there at that game, and then Kyle and I will talk about it on Tuesday morning. And
Dane will tell you who didn't run the play right.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was seats are great. Seats are great, and you know, I wasn't sitting by any of you guys. It was just peaceful,
talking your ear off.
Quiet. I had the broadcast on in my ear. I felt like I was at home, but it was great. It was great. So I'll be there, and I'll be in the locker room again tonight. We'll set some stuff up there. But until Tuesday with Kyle, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing